Yo, Kipis Guy here. Hey, so you've probably spent a lot of time on YouTube, on the internet, talking about placement, speaker placement, subwoofer placement, making sure that all your speakers are in the right place. That's probably the most common thing you hear when you hear the word or the phrase placement. But it gets a little bit deeper than that. It's not just about your speaker placement. It doesn't matter how good your speaker placement is if your seating placement is bad. So we're going to talk about that in this video. Where to put your seatment, the 1/3, the 2/3 rule, the viewing distance from your TV. We're going to talk about all that and why it matters. And in this video, I'm going to show you on the SPL meter exactly what happens when you're in a bad seating position versus when you're in a good one. So let's talk about viewing distance. Whenever you're setting up your home theater, or maybe you have it in a living room, basement, bedroom, whatever, it'll all apply to you. When you set up your seating placement, the first thing you really want to try to get right is your viewing distance from your video source, whether that's a TV or a projector. You don't want to be too close because then you're going to have peripheral issues where you're going to be turning your neck to see the screen whenever you're too close to it. You may have an issue when you're too far back and now you start to lose that 4K resolution. Now you're too far away to really get the full 4K or 8K, whatever you're watching, right? So there is some ruling that is in place when it comes to viewing distance. So how do you figure out where you should sit? How far should you be from your screen? Well, check this out. If you measure your TV horizontally, not diagonally, but horizontally from end to end, multiply that by 2, and that's the minimum viewing distance you should be away from your screen. Now, there are some caveats to this. For example, a TV, it could be pretty bright, right? But a projector screen, maybe not, because that's not light going at you. Projectors don't reflect light back at you the way that a TV would. It doesn't beam light into you, so you may get away with being closer. But generally, you want to measure horizontally one end to the other and multiply that by 2. And that is the inches away that you want to be. So if I have a 70-inch TV and I measure that TV horizontally from left to right or whatever and multiply that by 2, that's how many inches away from the screen I should be sitting. If you want to know the maximum distance away that you should be sitting, well, you usually want to multiply that by 4 or by 5. So take that same measurement, multiply it by 5, and that's how far away you can be from that TV before you start to lose the resolution. You're too far away to take advantage of that high resolution 4K, 6K, 8K, whatever you may be watching. So that's a good rule of thumb to get you started in your seating position. So it's good to know your maximum distance for a reason. If you have multiple rows in your home theater, you don't want your last row to be further than 5 times the horizontal inch of your TV. So if you have 2 or 3 rows, make sure your first row is no closer than your horizontal width times 2. Make sure your second row and then your third row are no further away than the horizontal inches times 5. So now that we've kind of got an idea of where our seats are going to be, we're not stopping there. We also need to make sure that our seating is the equal distance from our speakers. We want to be equidistant from every speaker that's in our room except maybe the subwoofer. So you have, let's say, a 5.1 channel system, a center channel, a front left speaker, a front right speaker, and then you have a side surround left and side surround right. 5 speakers. And when you're sitting in your sweet spot or your main listening position, you ideally want all your speakers to be equidistant from you. So if you found the good spot for your seats in your viewing distance, now you want to get your speakers the same distance from your seating too. The harm that you cause yourself whenever you have speakers different distances from you is that things start to have a little bit of delay, time delay. Things are reaching your ears at different times. So things don't sound accurate. Things sound delayed. Things sound off. Lips kind of sound muffled or maybe even late. Of course, modern day receivers will make up for this and they will set delays and change volume levels for each speaker, but you want to give your preprocessor or your AV receiver the best chance at making the right settings by putting everything in the right spot. So there are some rule of thumbs. First of all, if you are using a 5-channel system, those surround speakers do not go behind you. They actually go to the side of you. And they can be a few degrees different. They don't have to be directly to the side. They can be slightly behind you, pointed, a little bit towards you, but they don't go behind you. That's only if you have a 7-channel system, and a 5-channel system doesn't use rear speakers. So make sure that your side speakers are actually relatively close to the side, about ear level. Let's say when you're sitting in your seat, your side surrounds are about 10 feet away from you here, 10 feet away from you here. You're gonna want your front speakers to also be about 10 feet away from you here, 10 feet away from you here, so on and so forth. So make sure that your speakers are the same distance from each other, and then run calibration. It's not always possible. Don't think you're doing anything wrong if you have a room with an open floor plan or a door or some kind of obstruction where you can't put that speaker where it needs to be. It's all right. Get it as close as you can. Your preprocessor or AV receiver will have calibration inside where it'll make up for a little bit of that mishap that you're having with that speaker. But do yourself a favor and try to get that equal distance as well. All right, so let's talk about the 1/3 or 2/3 rule. If you don't do anything else correctly in this video, do this correctly, because this will make a difference. Even if you have all your speakers equal distance from you, which isn't really possible if you have the 1/3 or 2/3 rule wrong, but let's just say you have your speakers in a decent placement, but your seats are not. The 1/3/2/3 rule means that your seating is about 1/3 off of the back wall, right? Or 2/3 away from the front wall. How do you determine where 2/3 is? So what we mean by 2/3 is if you take your room and you section it off into thirds, 3/3, right? So 1/3, 2/3, and then you have the back of the room. You want your seating to be 2/3 away from the front wall. Basically, getting it out of the middle of the room. Why? Well, the middle of the room is full of nodes, full of modes that have peaks, have nulls, have dead spots, have no bass, so on and so forth. You may think you want your seats in the middle of the room because, yeah, maybe you can get your speakers more evenly placed that way, but that's not always going to work for you. Most of the time it won't. Having your seats 2/3 from the wall usually results in better bass response, or just more bass response in general, more clarity. Your speakers can be placed in better options, so on and so forth. But if you put your seat in the middle of the room, then you may find that you have no bass. The treble is lacking. Your kick drums don't sound good. Your subwoofer is moving a lot, but you don't hear anything. That's because the room has so much effect on your sound right there in the middle that sound waves are just going everywhere. They're bouncing here, left, right, and center. They're canceling each other out. And because of that, you want to keep your seats at least 2/3 out of the front wall or 1/3 away from the back wall. Now, it's not just all about the middle seat or the middle section of your room. If you push your seats all the way up against the wall, you cause yourself a different problem. Now you have too much bass. You have muddy bass, really nasty, punchy bass. Now you're too far away from your front speakers, and you're probably too close to your surround speakers, especially if you're using more than 5. Now you're causing yourself a whole different headache. Boundary gain issues. You have emphasis on bass that you don't want. It's not blending very well with the rest of the speakers. You may have trouble hearing voices during movies because all you hear is mid-bass, mid-range frequencies. So you don't want to be in the middle of the room, and you don't want to be against the wall. And that's where the 1/3 or 2/3 rule comes in. Be 2/3 away from your screen and be 1/3 away from the back wall. I'm going to grab my SPL meter and show you exactly what happens when you have your seat too far into the middle of the room or against the back wall. All right, guys, so I switched to my phone so you guys can see. I'm running a 40 hertz tone, not too loud, but a 40 hertz tone on all the subs right now. And I'm holding it around my main listening position. So let's see what my reading looks like. So we're about 86 decibels right here in my main listening position. I'm gonna move to the middle of the room and watch what happens to the decibel level. You see it starts to drop. Let's see what happens when I go back to my main listening position. And let's see what happens when I go to the back wall. Back to the main listening position. To the back wall. So did you guys notice as I moved around the room, the frequency started to drop, and as I went towards the back, the frequency started to rise. In my main listening position, we're getting about 86 dBs. When I went to the back wall, I was getting almost like 95. When I went to the front room, we're getting 84, 85. As you move around the room has different effects on frequencies. Now, that was just a 40 hertz flat tone. So that may be a different result if I'm using 45 or using 20 or using 76, right? The room does different things to different frequencies. But the common theme is when you get too far to the back wall, you start getting a lot of extra pressure. It's called room boundary gain, and it's not good. You may think, oh yeah, if I put my seats to the back, I'll get tons of bass. You're correct. It'll happen, but it's not tasteful. It's not going to be a good sound, and it very well could be overbearing. My speakers may be playing 80 decibels, but the room may be causing my subs to be playing 95. And now my center channel is playing 80, my subwoofer is playing 95, and now I can't hear anything because the bass is too loud. It's uneven, it's unbalanced. So you want to make sure that your seats are 2/3 away from the front wall, which makes them 1/3 away from the back wall. And that should yield you the most balanced sound between highs, mid-range, and the low frequency effects. All right, guys, I'm gonna leave this video here. We can get way more technical, and if you guys would like to, leave me some comments down below, and I'm more than happy to have more of a discussion with you guys. You guys are more than welcome to leave me your feedback as well. What do you guys think about the 2/3 rule? Is it a good rule of thumb? Should we ignore it? What is your take on it? How do you guys achieve a good sound? How do you guys know where your seats are in the best spot? Let me know that down below in the comment section. Hit that like button, subscribe if you are not already, and we will see you guys in the next video. KP Sky out. Peace.